Hey, Fred Minnick here, and I'm about to drop a list that came from YouTube member Shawn Dent, and he wants to know what obtainable bourbons could replace the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. Woohoo! Giddy up! Okay, so the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection is one of those annual releases that we all get excited about. We're talking about 5 bottles that are heavyweight contenders up for Whiskey of the Year every single year. And boy, when retailers get them, they get long lines of people to get a single bottle. Bars will charge $100, $200, $300 a pour, depending on what year it is. We're talking about Thomas H. Handy, Sazerac 18-year-old, Eagle Rare 17-year-old, William LaRue Weller, and probably everyone's perennial favorite, George T. Stag, although for me, it's almost always Weller. But it's always Weller versus Stag when it comes to what is your favorite Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. For me, last year was actually the Sazerac Rye. It was really, really, really tasty. With that being said, over the years, I have loved to taste these up against some things that you can find in the store. And wouldn't you like to know that many times the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection lose to things that you can find on the shelf? Now, what's interesting about that, it doesn't matter what one man's or one person's tasting yields, people still want to get that bottle. Those are bottles that, even if you don't drink them, they will appreciate over time. And if you want to, pay for your kids' college with it, more power to you. I do recommend drinking your bourbon instead of using it as an investment, but hey, to each his own. So I'm going to go ahead and do what Mr. Dent would like me to. He's a coveted, valued YouTube member, so I like to keep my YouTube members happy. If you'd like to become one, just click that join button, by the way. Also, if you're not a subscriber yet, listen, you can get this before anybody else. Just click that subscribe button and hit the reminder so you can see my comments before most people do. Also, hit the like button. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm overlords. So, I'm going to go ahead and start. Let's do this. So, William LaRue Weller, a perennial powerhouse, usually a 12-year-old cask strength. Now, it varies from year to year what the proof on it is, but it's always a beast. It's always delicious. It's always complicated. Of all the years I've been tasting whiskey, I've not had a bad one out of the bunch. Now, I like some more than others, don't get me wrong, but William LaRue Weller is always fantastic. So what obtainable bourbon would I pick over, well, I wouldn't necessarily pick it over William LaRue Weller, but what obtainable bourbon is a nice obtainable replacement for it? And if you put it in a blind tasting, there's a chance it could win it. I'm talking about Maker's Mark Cask Strength. Now, a few years ago, this hits the shelves. It's only in the gift shops. Then it's only in Kentucky. Then it starts circulating out. Maker's Mark Cask Strength is an absolute delicious gem that does not get enough attention, probably because it's connected to one of the more widely distributed products. Now, if Maker's Mark, rebranded it and called it, Old Samuel's or the Samuel's Cask Strength, I don't know. I mean, that's what seems to happen in bourbon is like something can be really, really, really good, but it doesn't take off in the masses because it's in a same old product. But Maker's Mark is not hurting by any means. And I can guarantee you, if Maker's Mark put out a 12-year-old cask strength to go head-to-head with the 12-year-old William LaRue Weller, Makers would win this hands down in a blind tasting, and it would probably be the American Whiskey of the Year. But Maker's Mark is in the business of making money and not in the business of listening to me. And I will tell you, though, this Maker's Mark cask strength is absolutely delicious. It is an easy replacement that you can find if you are trying to get something on a regular basis that would be in the league of William LaRue Weller. Now, they are both wheated bourbons. William LaRue Weller is going to have it by the age, so there's going to be a lot more age. There's probably going to be about 6 years more age on the on William LaRue Weller than there is Maker's Mark, but Maker's Mark tastes above its pay grade here. I'm telling you, it tastes older than it is. Cask Strength Maker's is absolutely delicious. So look for Maker's Cask Strength as your obtainable replacement for William LaRue Weller. The other beast in the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, George T. Stag. Like I said, it usually goes head-to-head with Weller as everybody's favorite Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. And listen, if you get the opportunity to taste through all of them, you're a very privileged person. I get very fortunate that I get to taste through these every single year. Now, granted, I only get little bitty samples, but I get the opportunity to do so. And honestly, I tend to be very critical of Stag. I often find, some over oak notes in the George T. Stag. That being said, it is an annual favorite for a lot of whiskey reviewers, so I'm usually in the minority on my opinion of Stag. So my replacement for Stag, and it's obtainable, has actually defeated George T. Stag in several blind tastings of mine. Now, in 2018, you may recall a live stream that I did on Instagram, and it went away. So this is kind of like early in my social media days, and I didn't really know that if you didn't save it, it just went away. I didn't know. I really didn't. Honest to God's truth, I didn't know that. So I did this live stream on Instagram, and Rare Breed beat the entire Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. The entire collection. And I've had people like, hey, where's that video? Where's that video? It's out in the ether somewhere. I'm sure if I contacted Instagram, they would be more than happy to help me. But anyway, Rare Breed from Wild Turkey is only $40 to $50, and you can find it in most major markets. And I would put it up against anything all day long in any blind tasting. It has a chance to win any blind tasting every day of the week. It's complicated. It's layered. It's close and proof to George T. Stag. They're very similar in mash bill. And the age on it's going to lean toward George T. Stag when it comes to the age, but in flavor profile, I'm just telling you, Rare Breed beats it in most of my blind tastings. Now, like I was saying with George T. Stag, there's often this acidic wood note in there that is absent in Rare Breed. So I am very sensitive to acids and wood notes, and I downgrade on that. Some people like that, like my good friend Kenny from Bourbon Pursuit. He loves that sweet oak note. I don't like that. So you have to know who's tasting, before you listen to us, obviously. But you should listen to a lot of people and make your own decisions. But I would actually be buying a Rare Breed over George T. Stag, and not just as an obtainable replacement. I'm just saying in general. If I'm in a store and you got two bottles right here side by side, obviously George T. Stag is going to be a lot more money, and you got Rare Breed that's not, going to break the bank anyway. I'm buying Rare Breed. For you rye lovers out there, Thomas H. Handy is the cask strength behemoth in the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. Every year it gets, a lot of fans and a lot of haters. I have found that Thomas H. Handy is it's kind of it's perplexing, but it's so polarizing. And I think it's because that the market, us whiskey drinkers, we still have not figured out what we like in rye. I feel like, the Indiana distillery, now known as Ross and Squibb, formerly MGP, formerly LDI, formerly Seagram's, in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, they have put so much 95% rye into the market and created this desire for really overly herbal notes to include dill like you would see in a dill pickle. And then you have the great Canadian ryes that coming in from, via Whistle Pig that are just a behemoth of complexity. So when you see Kentucky ryes kind of get lost in the conversation, but there's more corn in them, and so they're often sweeter. So I find that people understand what they want in bourbon. I don't think a lot of whiskey drinkers know what they want in rye, and I think that's going to progress to people will figure out, and I think we're going to see real terroir and real creation techniques of rye whiskey as we see Maryland, Pennsylvania, Canada, Indiana, and Kentucky rye styles come on more often. That being said, a Thomas H. Handy replacement is going to be very, very difficult because there's not a lot of Kentucky cast strength ryes on the market, especially at that age. You're not going to find a lot in the hefty age range. But there is one distiller that has produced a lot of great ryes, and that's Jim Beam. Jim Beam put out what I think is probably a top 5 rye of this century in the Booker's rye, and the Knob Creek rye that they put out a couple years ago, you can still find on the shelf today. Knob Creek cast strength is available in markets for about $70. And you can find it in some of the online stores that ship. You can find it in places like Drizzly and places that are really well stocked that really kind of overlooks Knob Creek. Knob Creek gets overlooked a lot by the bigger stores, and so they'll just have something collecting dust in the back. But Knob Creek cast strength rye goes head-to-head very firmly against Thomas H. Handy. I think it's a beautiful sipper. I think it's great with a rock on it, and it's great with water. And, for my palate, I like it more than most of the Thomas H. Handys. Now, of the list that I'm providing you, this is going to be the hardest one to find, but it is available out there, and you will not find price gouging on Knob Creek cast strength rye like you do with Thomas H. Handy. That being said, if you're able to get both of them and do a head-to-head, I would love to know how it fares for you. I think that the Knob Creek is a touch more traditional, Kentucky rye, and Thomas H. Handy is a little bit more of like what we would see in more Pennsylvania style ryes or Canadian style ryes or Indiana, meaning that there's more herbal capacity, there's more herbal notes, and it's more you taste it and you automatically know it's rye. With the Knob Creek cast strength, it tends to be on the sweeter side and not as herbally. So if you are someone, what you like in rye and you like those herbal notes, then I would say actually stay away from the Knob Creek and maybe go toward a Whistle Pig. But for my palate, I'm liking the Knob Creek cast strength rye all day long as an obtainable replacement for the Thomas H. Handy. Now, for the Sazerac 18-year-old, this was my rye whiskey of the year last year. I thought it was really complicated, beautiful cherry notes there. I really love this one. Now, there's a lot of Sazerac rye that's tanked, and it's going to continue coming out. It's going to continue to be great. And I think that this is a really difficult one to find a replacement for as well, like the Thomas H. Handy, because you just don't see this old of Kentucky rye on the market. However, we do see great Kentucky rye with age statements. While the Sazerac is an 18-year-old, at least it was last year, Russell's Reserve 6-year-old from Wild Turkey, I think, can out-taste it in a blind tasting. Now, people ask me all the time, what is a rye whiskey that I can get? I always recommend Pikesville, and I recommend Russell's Reserve 6-year-old. I think those are two rye whiskeys that punch above their pay grade. However, Pikesville is very heavy in corn. The Russell's has a bit more of a traditional rye flavor profile that you would find in other states or other countries, and not like overloaded and saturated with corn like you see in some Kentucky rye whiskeys. So Russell's Reserve 6-year-old is my replacement that's obtainable for Sazerac. And look, I'm definitely buying it over Baby Saz. People might see this list and say, why didn't you pick Baby Saz over, for this? I don't think Baby Saz, can hold Russell's Reserve 6-year-old I don't think it can hold a candle to it. I think it's Russell's Reserve 6-year-old rye is one of the most underrated American whiskeys on every shelf in a liquor store. It is so good, and I don't know why it doesn't get more credit. And now for my least favorite annually of the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, Eagle Rare 17-year-old. Now, Eagle Rare 17-year-old has been on many of blind tastings for me. I have not medaled it like twice at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. I graded it like a 70 in a blind tasting that I did for another competition. And then I finished, I think, last or second to last in my annual BTAC blind tasting. So this one is actually really easy for me to recommend. I can recommend probably 100 bourbons over the Eagle Rare 17-year-old. Now, everybody's palate is different, and you need to taste for yourself to make your own decisions. But I cannot stand, has never been able to really fully appreciate Eagle Rare 17-year-old. Why? It is over oaked every single year for me. And I taste these things blind, so I'm not going in looking at the bottle saying, oh, well, there goes another year of Eagle Rare 17-year-old sucking. I'm just not going to like it. I'm not doing anything like that. It's blind, so I have no idea what I'm tasting. And so I would be recommending everyday bourbons, like even as something as obtainable as Elijah Craig over this. 25 to 30, depending on what market you're in. Elijah Craig. I'd recommend Four Roses single barrel all day long over it. But I understand there are some people who like it. And so I want to give you a product that is going to be a little closer in the league from an age profile. And you have to understand 17-year-old bourbons aren't just flying off the shelf. And usually most 17-year-old bourbons are not good. Ergo the Orphan Barrel series that has a lot of products that are over 17 years old. They're over oaked. And the thing that people don't understand, bourbon is not scotch. Every single day it's in that barrel, it's extracting, wood sugars from virgin oak. Scotch is going into used barrels. So that age statement, for a lot of people is like, oh boy, a 17-year-old, I can't wait. For me, I just look at it as like over oaked city. So, Knob Creek 12-year-old. It's 100 proof, so it's close. It's close in. It's very close in proof to the Eagle Rare. It's 12 years old, so it's within a few years of that age. You got a guaranteed age statement there, and you know what? It's available now. You will have to look for it, but you can just go into a random liquor store and there will be like 30 cases of Knob Creek 12-year-old. That's what happened to me when I bought like a case of it and I walked into a Kroger. Well, I didn't buy a case of it. I bought like a few bottles. I walked into a Kroger and there was like case. They were all stacked up. And, people would walk right into that store and go right past them and buy a Willet or ask if there was Pappy or one of Blanton's or go to a barrel pick. I just don't understand why people overlook Knob Creek so much. It's such a great value. And I would definitely pick the Knob Creek 9-year-old over the Eagle Rare 17-year-old. But for those who do have a hankering for that age statement that's north of 10 years old, Knob Creek 12-year-old is complex. It's gorgeous. My colleagues over at Breaking Bourbon had very nice things to say about this one as well last year. You may have to hunt for it just a little bit, but that hunt will be much easier than the Eagle Rare 17-year-old, and I can guarantee you that if you do it side by side, it's going to be neck and neck, and I think personally you'll find the 12-year-old Knob Creek will be out ahead. So I'm definitely picking Knob Creek 12-year-old over the Eagle Rare 17-year-old, and that will do it for this list. Hey, I reached out to my YouTube members, and I said people like lists. People like lists. I am not very good at coming up with lists. I am a traditional journalist, if you will, and there's a little part of me that thinks that lists are, can be too easy and there's not enough thought into them. So I like to create lists where I can provide something that's not just, that sucks, or that's garbage, or this is better. I like lists that mean something. So if you have an idea for a list and you'd like to put it in the comment section, I would love to see it. I would really appreciate it. Now, my YouTube members, they're always going to get first dibs because they're out there supporting me, but I'm reading their stuff all the time, and I've got a few more lists from them to do from, and so I'm making a commitment to try and make more lists because you all have requested it for this channel. Not just my reviews, but you want to see some action on what I think about things. But that's going to do it for this list. Hey, make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. I do appreciate it. Hit the like button, helps me with the algorithm overlords. And if you want to, become a member and get some one-on-one time with me, or with the membership community from time to time. But that's going to do it for this episode of The List That Keep On Giving. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. But I'm going to take my hoodie and head on out. Cheers, everybody. Be safe. Oh, vodka sucks.